Tassa Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Thank you, Bodhima. Thank you, everyone. Hope you all had lovely Easter. And I'm glad that you have joined us in studying the Bodhiyapakkhiyā Dhammas. I believe these are some of the very important teachings from the Buddha for several reasons. First among them being that the Bodhipakkhiyas, or as they're said in Pali, can be translated sort of like the wings of awakening, feathers of a bird that enables it to take flight. So the qualities, the most essential components that Buddha deemed necessary for spiritual growth, for awakening of Bodhi, he termed it as Bodhipakkhiyā. They can perhaps be, as per the notion of many great teachers, including some very contemporary ones, such as Ledi Sayadaw and others from Myanmar. They think that these are the very heart essence of Buddha's teaching. And if we study them properly, they sort of present in them Buddha's blueprint for awakening, for his objective of what meditative life is about, what studying of the Dhamma is about, and perhaps what a Buddha might have been trying to teach and share. So for these reasons, this is a very good topic to discuss and to contemplate a little bit and see how we can incorporate them in our practice. Second reason why I think these are very helpful is also to understand a little bit the context when Buddha taught this. So as some of you may remember, last week we discussed that Buddha had taught this in a very unique situation, very much towards the last journey of his life, perhaps final few months of his life, when he had known that he probably won't live for long, and he's slowly moving away from Uruvela, the forests of northeastern India, in Bihar today, towards northern base of the Himalayas, towards Kapilavastu, his hometown. And this sutta takes place in a very unique situation. When Buddha knows that his passing away is imminent, he shares it first with his attendant, Venerable Ananda, who had been Buddha's personal secretary for so long. And when Venerable Ananda hears the Buddha will very soon pass away, he felt very sad. And it is believed that Venerable Ananda was not enlightened yet. He had been very busy serving the Sangha, looking after Buddha, looking after the monastic brothers and sisters. He didn't have enough time to practice for himself, so he was very distraught. And it is in this situation the Buddha summons Venerable Ananda and he requests Ananda, go and gather all the monks in this region. I would like to share with them some of the final teachings. And it is in this very arousing situation that when monks are gathered, in the gabled halls of Vaishali, the Buddha sort of teaches what seems like a small, brief passing chapter compared to other teachings of the Buddha, which are very multi-pages, many pages long. This sutta is actually somewhat very small, roughly less than 2 pages or 4 palm leaves. The sutta itself, as when the Venerable monks remembered Buddha's teaching, when they started writing them down in Tipitaka, is part of Mahāparinibbāna Sutta, or the Great Departure Sutta. This sutta is part of so-called long discourses of Buddha. And one of the longest sutta actually out there. And within that sutta, this is like the topic number 20th, because that sutta dealing with perhaps the last few months of Buddha's life, there are so many important events that are taking place. And even for monks who had to memorize each word, they really had a hard time to sort of decide what to keep and what to leave out. So in the effort to categorize the most essential, they wrote all things in detail. And when they came to this encounter, they dedicated about 4 pages saying that this is very important. And we find that one teacher in 2nd century AD in Sri Lanka made a remark there in the commentaries that this is perhaps the very heart essence of Buddha's teaching given to the monks. So it is in this context that we are going to study and explore this idea a little bit more. Before we go a little bit deeper, I would like to request one of us, perhaps, to read out in very short summary. I believe Bodhima had circulated through email, to read out how this portion, the portion on Bodhiyapakkhiyā Dhammas, are there or preserved there, and then we'll go on in further discussion.
So you're asking for them to read the entire discourse that you sent, which is
Yes,
5 pages?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone want to volunteer to start? I'll have to pull up a different screen, but I'm happy to.
Let's see if I have it.
All right, I'll start. 37, Bodhiyapakkhiyā Dhammā, Wings of Awakening. Mahāparinibbāna Sutta, the discourse on the final nirvana. The Mahāparinibbāna Sutta, also known as the Great Departure Sutta, is the 16th sutta in the Digha Nikaya, or long discourses of the Buddha. This extended discourse vividly recounts the months of the Buddha's life, the final months of the Buddha's life. 20. The appeal of Ananda. If you had begged me, I would have turned you down twice, but consented on the 3rd time. Therefore, Ananda, the misdeed is yours alone, the mistake is yours alone. Did I not prepare for this when I explained that we must be parted and separated from all we hold dear and beloved? How could it possibly be so that what is born, created, conditioned, and liable to wear out should not wear out? The realized one has discarded, eliminated, released, given up, relinquished, and surrendered the life force. He has categorically stated the full extinguishment of the realized one will be soon. 3 months from now, the realized one will be fully extinguished. It's not possible for the realized one, for the sake of life, to take back the life force once it has been given up like that. Come, Ananda, let's go to the great wood, the hall with the peaked roof. Yes, sir, Ananda replied. So the Buddha went with Ananda to the hall with the peaked roof and said to him, "Go, Ananda, gather all the mendicants staying in the vicinity of Vaishali together in the assembly hall. Compare the earlier request to gather all the mendicants around Rajagaha." "Yes, sir," replied Ananda. He did what the Buddha asked, went up to him, bowed, stood on one side, and said to him, "Sir, the mendicant Sangha has assembled. Please, sir, go at your convenience." Then the Buddha went to the assembly hall, where he sat on the seat spread out and addressed the mendicants. "So, mendicants, having carefully memorized those things I have taught you from my direct knowledge, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them so that the spiritual practice may last for a long time. That would be for the welfare and happiness of the people, out of sympathy for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and humans." Memorization was considered an essential basis for learning in similar passages. We also find the injunction to recite the teachings, thus authorizing the recitation of the Buddha's teachings after his death, which was later formalized in the councils. And what are those things I have taught from my direct knowledge? They are the 4 kinds of mindfulness meditation, the 4 right efforts, the 4 bases of psychic power, the 5 faculties, the 5 powers, the 7 factors, and the Noble Eightfold Path. These are the things I have taught from my direct knowledge. Having carefully memorized them, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them so that this spiritual practice may last for a long time. That would be for the welfare and the happiness of the people, out of sympathy for the world, for the benefit, welfare, and happiness of gods and humans. Then the Buddha said to the mendicants, "Is there anyone who would like to take over from here now?"
I can do it.
Great, thank you.
Come on now, mendicants. I say to you all, conditions fall apart. Persist with diligence. The full extinguishment of the realized one will be soon. 3 months from now, the realized one will be fully extinguished. That is what the Buddha said. Then the Holy One, the teacher, went on to say, "I have reached a ripe old age. A little of my life is left. Having given it up, I will depart. I have made a refugee for myself. Diligent and mindful, be of good virtues, mendicants. With well-settled thoughts, take good care of your minds. Whoever meditates diligently in this teaching and training, giving up transmigration through rebirths, will make an end to suffering." In 24, bringing a drink. Then the Buddha left the road, went to the root of certain tree where he addressed Ananda. "Go on then, Ananda, fold my outer robe in 4 and spread it out for me. I'm tired and will sit down." The Sanghiti is a double-layered and served both for warmth as bedding. The Buddha has not recovered fully from his illness. "Yes, sir," replied Ananda, and did as he was asked. The Buddha sat on the seat spread out. When he was seated, he said to the Venerable Ananda, "Go on, Ananda, fetch me some water. I'm thirsty and will drink." The Buddha was an exemplary patient. He did not complain, but made his needs known clearly to his courier. When he said this, Venerable Ananda said to the Buddha, "Sir, just now around 500 carts have passed by. The shallow water has been churned up by their wheels, and it flows cloudy and murky. The Kakuda River is not far away, with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks, delightful. There the Buddha can drink and cool his limbs." It would seem that since the Buddha was enduring his illness without complaint and with dignity, Ananda did not fully realize how weak he has become. For a second time, the Buddha asked Ananda for a drink. And for a second time, Ananda suggested going to the Kakuda River. And for the third time, the Buddha said to Ananda, "Go on then, Ananda, fetch me some water. I'm thirsty and will drink." "Yes, sir," replied Ananda. Taking his bowl, he went to the river. The bowl was used both for eating and drinking. Now, though the shallow water in that creek had been churned up by wheels and flowed cloudy and murky, when Ananda approached, it flowed transparent, clear, and unclouded. Then the Ananda thought, "O Lord, how incredible, how amazing. The realized one has such psychic power and might. For though the shallow water in that creek has been churned up by wheels, flowed cloudy and murky, when I approached it, it flowed transparent, clear, and unclouded." Gathering a bowl of drinking water, he went back to the Buddha and said to him, "It's incredible, sir, it's amazing. The realized one has such psychic power and might. Just now, though the shallow water in that creek had been churned up by wheels, flowed cloudy and murky, when I approached it, it flowed transparent, clear, and unclouded. Drink the water, blessed one, drink the water, holy one." So the Buddha drank the water.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunny, for reading the remainder of the sutta. So here there are two incidences worth contemplating about. One is believed to be the final teaching from Buddha to Venerable Ananda. And there is a whole lineage of Zen masters. They think that in doing so, through this very simple story, simile of clear water, Buddha had transmitted some of the most essential teaching to Venerable Ananda. And he prepared him in a way so that when Buddha would leave, Ananda would take over the responsibility of guiding the Sangha. We'll circle back to that story a little later. That is the first one that we are going to study, and I would like to bring your attention to. I would encourage some of you, if you're interested, you can search for Mahāparinibbāna Sutta. We can text the name. There are some very good translations available of that sutta nowadays. There is a website called suttacentral.com. It's by some Australian venerable monks, and they have very good translations there as well. It's a rather long sutta, but it's worth reading. And premise to this sutta, I did not include the whole chapter because it would rather be a very long one. So for those who are interested to read longer version, you are welcome to go and find out on the website. But here, there's a bit of a story there, because the sutta, the way they are translated, they have the words of Buddha and then they have the commentators' words. And then there are stories inserted. So this here it says that prior to Buddha deciding that he will leave his body on one certain date, it seems like he had hinted to Venerable Ananda several times. He had made known that if somebody were to ask him, like Venerable Ananda, his close disciples, that Buddha, we need you to stay with us longer, then it is possible, Buddha said, that despite his health failing, his body being really weak, that he would make really strong effort and could live for another few years. It was possible. So that's the preamble to that story. And he had hinted to Venerable Ananda several times, but somehow Ananda failed to grasp it. And then he went to meditate onto nearby trees. And that's when Buddha went into deep samadhi, looked into his remaining life and meditated upon it. And this is, it is believed, something sort of a preview of an enlightened being. So he made a prediction for himself that, okay, from this onward now, the approaching full moon day of Vesak, it will be his last. So when he did that, it is said that Venerable Ananda, he felt it very strongly. He came to Buddha to request, what's happening, what happened here. And then Buddha, when he told him that he has finally made a vow to pass away, and that's the preamble to it, then Venerable Ananda requests Buddha to live for them for longer, to guide the Sangha. And so this story has a little bit of that chapter, the appeal of Ananda, and Buddha tells Ananda that, Ananda, you failed to grasp the situation, but it's all right. This is the nature of things as people come and pass. Even if I were to work hard and stay alive for a few more years, my teaching, my gift to all of you would be the same. So in this scenario, to palliate Ananda and to address the Sangha, Buddha had them all gathered. So sort of this is essential to help understand how Buddha saw his teaching, this particular sutta, as a final parting gift to the Sangha. And Buddha was known to give really long discourses often. So to my surprise, in this one, Buddha gives a very short and very direct summary of all his teaching. Here he says, and what are those things that I have taught from my direct knowledge? And he lists, just like a formula, what we call the 37 factors of awakening, like the essential blueprint of his work. He very firmly puts practice of mindfulness, fourfold mindfulness, mindfulness of body, breath, sensations, mindfulness of moods, and so forth, as essential component of his spiritual path. And then he lists right effort, the 4 right efforts. He lists 4 bases of psychic power, the 5 faculties, the spiritual balas, the 5 powers, 7 factors of awakening, 7 factors of meditation, what qualifies as a good meditation, and then the essential Eightfold Noble Path. And very boldly he declares, he says, these are things I have taught from my direct knowledge. Having carefully memorized them, he encourages the Sangha, you should cultivate, develop, and make much of them. That means to grow, to expound them. And as a parting, this is perhaps his last address, he says, Handadani Bhikkhave, come now, mendicants, I say to all of you, Vaya Dhamma Sankhara, all the conditioned things are to fall apart. With due diligence, fulfill the path of life. it is recorded that this is perhaps the last teaching, formal teaching ever given by the Buddha. And in the suttas, it is recorded as the last speech by the Buddha. Handadani bhikkhave vaya Dhamma sankhara. So now that we have covered a little bit of the preamble of when the sutta came to be, I was trying to share with you the screen, but I'm very new to Zoom. So it doesn't seem to be working. Bodhima had advised me that maybe if I included some photos.
Just not that experienced.
Okay.
So move your cursor on the screen.
It's okay. I'll just keep it
And
today.
you'll see that upward arrow at the bottom.
Okay.
It says share.
So I think it will take a long time to figure out the technical part. So I think this image you might have received, some of you, in the email. There was a, yes, please.
I can find it.
There. Thank you.
It's pretty small though, right?
That's good. That's good. So this is a rather scary, very like a scientific chart, right? It looks almost like some kind of chemical analysis. But this is somebody's effort to try and put together these core ideas. And the way they are grouping them, the 7 factors, they're putting the 7 factors of awakening, bojjhangas. In the center, they're putting the satipatthana, practice of mindfulness. And on the right side, they're putting the Eightfold Noble Path, like the core philosophical part on the top. And then the effort and the Itipadas, 4 bases of power, and 5 faculties, and 5 other sources of power. They're putting it at the base in a way. So for those who haven't received it, we'll definitely ask Bodhima to circulate it again. This is what we will be following up for next few weeks. Please close that. Technical is okay. So now that the technical part is done, please allow me to take you slowly into opening up the theoretical aspect of it. For someone like me who has studied the Dhamma for almost 30 years, trying to understand them, trying to meditate, to try and really go to the heart of it. Among all the suttas, I find this one, though short and brief, but yet for a seeker, so much worth studying and learning a little bit. So even if it takes a little bit of time, slowly trying to understand them, it becomes like a key to unlock all the other suttas from Buddha. And another very important aspect I have seen is that this 37 aspect of the Dhamma, they sort of link with each other, they support each other. And in doing so, they help complete what is often lacking in the teaching. Nowadays, whenever we hear the Dhamma, we often hear words like mindfulness, for example, as number one teaching. The Buddha has taught mindfulness, 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 right? But when things become very one-directional, one focus, sometimes even very small ones, but essential aspect of the Dhamma, they are left out. So many people who practice mindfulness alone, for example, for years, and then you come to a point where it needs a little help, or sometimes some people find it's not working. And it's because they are not teaching on their own. They don't stand alone. They work in tandem with other things, right? That's how Buddha has defined the Dhamma. That is a systems work. There's so many pieces of these gears that have to work together to flow. So that is why I found this sutta to be very, very helpful to study. So for today, I would like to take you on a journey to start from the concept of effort in Buddhism, right? How Buddha has seen how we should apply spiritual effort. So these 37 factors, they are in 7 categories. Category of mindfulness or satipatthana is one. Category of efforts, right effort, is another one. And then there are iddipadas, some very less heard concepts that you may not have heard before. Right? So we'll be exploring them further. So before we explore the concept of effort, let's go back once again to the early reading. As you were reading, I think Sunny's part, when you read the simile of clear water sutra, where the incident occurs that Venerable Ananda has to go and fetch water for Buddha before he reaches Kushinara. And Ananda protests that, oh, we have just crossed that stream and it's been muddied by so many bullock carts. The water was dirty. But Buddha was very insistent. He asked him 3 times to go back to the same river, bring some water. By the time Ananda arrived back to the river, the water was so clear. And Ananda is marveling on it. We may think that this is a very simple event, like this is, why would monks go to such a length to memorize this and then teach to the other monks and pass it along and along? In this simile, there is coded, there is hidden a very profound statement for Buddha. Before passing away, Buddha had taught to some senior monks, including Venerable Ananda, and this teaching also gestured, where Buddha says that Pabhashara midam bhikkhave chittam. It's one line. What he had taught is that the nature of mind itself, the deep core of mind itself, is a pabhashara, luminous on its own. Buddha explains that our mind in itself, at its very natural state, is luminous, is free from any negativity. That's the heart of the Dhamma. It says every individual, when they start on the journey of being a human, or even journey of spirituality, to go back to the original state, we have to remember that the state, the mind itself, the very fundamental nature of every mind is luminous, pure, brilliant, and at ease. But it says that as we are born from this natural state, slowly, there is, Buddha terms them, they call them pancha nivaranas. There's these clouds that shape us, that cover our view, cover our mind. They're very simple little things. And this is beauty of Buddha's way of teaching. Everything is numbers, numbers. He is such a, or perhaps this is work of later-day monks, that they categorize everything in numerical formulas. So they term that there are some very basic, few little things. Things like desire, very simple little things, desire, greed, aversion, restlessness, that these little qualities, they start clouding the consciousness. And as the consciousness is clouded, things become very muddled. Just like the clear stream, when bullock carts go through it and they stir up all the mud, you cannot see through it, becomes very muddy. In the same way, our mind, though, when somebody is born at natural state, is clouded by all these stirred thoughts. But letting those dust settle in, revisiting that core consciousness, patiently, waiting a little bit, the clear stream will flow, right? This teaching hasn't been heard much. It hasn't been taught as much. Babashara idam bhikkhave chittam, that the essence of mind is luminous. If somebody is inclined, you can search for it. You can find in teachings called Anguttara Nikaya and so forth. But this is very, at the very basis. So what it means is that somehow, when we are born as children, right? And this is a puzzle as well, even for me, it's a great puzzle. When I look at human being, right, it's a marvelous thing. Right? When a child is born, we can all understand that, okay, that this is very simple biological function, right? That the genes from mother and father, they've come through fertilization. There is this biological mass. A few months later, you can see all the senses developing. A child is born. You can see it all, right? But what amazes me is that within few years of birth, 3-4 years, if we really observe human beings, and as a teacher, something this I was very tuned to watch the kids and see how they learn, how they grow, how they respond to us. It amazed me that very soon, at even simple age of 3 to 4 years, the amount of habitual data they learn, they can understand complex ideas, they develop personalities, they develop different types of memories, different type of nuances. If you look at it from purely scientific perspective, from physical perspective, sometimes it's marvelous. How is it even possible to learn so much within those 3-4 years of just growing? And yet, so much is learned, right? Fascinating, fascinating. But another beautiful thing is that when we watch little children, right? And I learned so much from watching kindergarten kids in our school. Our school, we were very surprised when we opened in our first metta school in the village. So many little ones would come. Our school would open around 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock. All the kids are showing up at the school. 9 o'clock is filled with kids. And we say, like, school doesn't even start till 10. What would you do here? And they would say, we'll just play around and we like it here. It's a happy place. And I would watch, right? Little kids, many of them don't even have proper clothes to wear. Some don't even have underpants. They're just roaming around in the village. 1 hour, 2 hours before the classes start. And they're playing in dirt. Some are making leafy structures, just roaming around, some chasing little bugs here and there, some bringing their pet goat. And I was amazed that a lot of those kids, when they were left on their own, without any intervention, they were capable of so much joy and so much happiness. Very little was needed, just playing with sand and dirt, and the dirt falls down and they're giggling and laughing. So much joy is there. Unconditioned. Nobody has told them to be happy. There is no reward. No, all of this is not applied, right? Fried is not there yet. They're decades away from fried, decades away from young or anything. There is no complex. Simple little things, right? Somebody looks at other one and says that his face, he hasn't washed his face and has just showed up at his school. And that alone becomes such a joy, source of joy. They're laughing to see their friend who hasn't washed his face. What we notice is that at that initial stage, everyone is capable of spontaneous joy. And another thing, if we notice, a very spontaneous curiosity. Right? Every child is just so curious. Wow. You tell a tiny tale and they're fully there, and wow, they're fascinated and creative, right? From Buddhist point of view, if we say like Buddha analyze them, right? Not psychoanalyze them, but Buddha analyze them. What's happening is we don't know fully. There are some meditative parts to it, how the past life karma and consciousness imprints, perhaps. That's another topic. But at that stage, their luminous mind, unconditioned mind is stronger. The consciousness is stronger before the memory grows. And we think from Dhamma point of view that this comes after 3 years of age. Between 3 to 7 is when all the past karma comes to them, according to the Dhamma. So prior to that, their natural state is very strong. And as a result, it goes back to, not fully, but goes back to Pavasharachita, light-infused mind, consciousness itself. And naturally, there is joy, there is relaxation, there is curiosity, there is creativity. And then slowly, we don't know fully yet what happens. One of the greatest tragedy, right? And then they grow up and they get to grade 4, 5, 6, and you can see them like as teachers. I watch them so closely. Come grade 10, you can't even make them laugh and smile anymore unless you have a valid reason for it. And it has to be in their way, right? Wait till they get to university and yeah, why are you laughing? Was there to smile or something, right? And I've had those privileges to raise so many of our girls, our students. This is what Buddha is saying, that at natural state, the mind itself is luminous, it's wholesome, it's beautiful. We are born with all these qualities of relaxation, joy, curiosity. But as we grow, as conditioning grows, initially the sankharas come, right? And then the conditioning, the nivaranas come. In that sense, studying what it is known. So I would encourage all of you, for those wanting to study the 37 Bodhiyapakkhiyā Dhammas, that please print that photo, or we'll re-email again, the map of 37 factors of, or wings of awakening, because we'll be referring to that a lot. And so that when we discuss, you may know which topic we're studying on and you can map a little bit. This will be very helpful. So today, I would like to begin a little bit with the idea of right efforts, or as they are called in 37 Bodhiyapakkhiyā Dhammas, sampadhanas. Why they are so different? Because you see, we have often the very misunderstood idea. Even I, in the beginning, for the longest time, I was also under this false impression. Initially, we were taught that, okay, purpose of the Dhamma practice is that you be mindful of everything as it is arising, as it's passing, as life is unfolding, and you see the anicca, you see the change as it is happening, don't react to it. Right? As if very passively coached through life. But in reality, it's not so. If we ask Buddha, very explicitly Buddha makes that is one thing, that is one practice, that is practice of right attention. That's all there is. You don't translate that into philosophy of life. It's much more complex, Buddha says. Buddha advises that you should actually make effort in life, conscious effort. Not just be passive through meditation, but be active on it. So that is why he taught 4 sampadhanas, or 4 efforts, conscious effort. And Bodhima, could you read us, please, how Buddha has defined the 4 sampadhanas, or 4 efforts, and how it's translated, texted you. And then we'll come to that discussion a little bit.
The 4 right exertions, sampadhana: generating desire, endeavoring, arousing persistence, upholding and exerting one's intent for the sake of the non-arising of evil, unskillful qualities that have not yet arisen. Generating desire, endeavoring, arousing persistence, upholding and exerting one's intent for the sake of the abandoning of evil, unskillful qualities that have risen. Generating desire, endeavoring, arousing persistence, upholding, exerting one's intent for the sake of the arising of skillful qualities that have not yet arisen. Generating desire, endeavoring, arousing persistence, upholding and exerting one's intent for the maintenance, non-confusion, increase, plenitude, development, and culmination of skillful qualities that have arisen.
Thank you, Bodhima. Some of you might find it familiar because we study something very similar again in Eightfold Noble Path. They're called right exercises, samma vayamo. Here Buddha puts them aside in a way to point to us that these require effort. They require conscious effort to cultivate. They need proactive pursuit to grow. So in that sense, it's a little bit different here. So there are 4 of these efforts, Buddha says, that we should make conscious note of. First of them is guarding. Second is abandoning. Third is developing. The 4th is maintaining, right? Buddha has listed them that one should be conscious of. Guarding our mind, to watch for hindrances to arrive, energies that cloud our consciousness. And specifically 5 hindrances, such as watching whenever greed arises in us, whenever anger arises in us, whenever delusion arises in us, we can see them as a mental exercise in a way, just to reflect upon ourselves sometimes. That maybe checking in with us. How am I feeling? Do I have greed in my life? How do I feel when greed arises? How do I feel when anger arises? What is my mechanism? How do I deal with it? Do I have delusions that arise in me? Do I have distraction mechanism that I avoid things and I make myself busy with other things so that I could forget things? Buddha calls them savara, that these are, they're like, in a simile, it is like riding the lion. So what that means is these qualities just need to be checked in, that's all. If they are left unchecked, then they will just continue growing in us. One could be meditating so much, we could be making so much effort, say, okay, I am sitting on cushion, mindful of my breath, my body, meditating regularly. And yet next day, we don't find we're progressing very much, right? The reason is sometimes that the mental qualities that keep percolating underneath, they definitely go away during the time when we are meditating, right? So we will get the benefit of them not bugging us at that time. And maybe they won't come back soon for a little bit longer, as long as the meditative effect lasts. But they haven't gone away. Those qualities still continue unchecked, percolating in us. We don't have to see them in a negative way. We don't have to see them in a moralistic way that, oh, this is bad, I have greed or something. What Buddha says is that being mindful of observing what greed, for example, makes us feel like, right? We all may have desire like, oh, it would be nice if I won a lottery, right? Things would be so much easier. Or if I did this, nothing wrong with them in a way. But from Buddhist point of view, what it shows is that whenever we desire something, whenever this tiny bit of greed arises in us, there is a lack born. There is a sense of, oh, I lack something is born already. Before there is any greed, you're okay. But as soon as it develops, you feel like, oh, I'm missing something. I'm missing this, I'm missing that. There's a wonderful story. Mahāparinibbāna Sutras actually have recorded Chinese stories long time ago. One of the earliest story to come out of India they have recorded. They say that once while Buddha was alive, he was residing in Shravasti, and on a special festival day, people of Shravasti, they were making these very beautiful sweet cakes. They're called laddus, a very famous sweet in India. So someone had given Buddha this very beautiful, very juicy laddu. It's like sugar drenched, for Indians, laddus are very, very emotional. So somebody had given it to Buddha, and Buddha was walking to Shravasti, Jetavana monastery, carrying this big laddu in his hand. And on the gate of the monastery, there was this almost 95-year-old Brahmin. He was just sitting there. And as soon as he saw the laddu, his mouth started levitating. He was so poor that he couldn't afford anything. And it had been years since he ever had a laddu. And he kept looking at the Buddha and the laddu. And he was making all the other monks so uncomfortable. Like, what do we do with him now? He just is staring. And so Buddha noticed it. And he came to him. And he says, oh, old man, well, is there something I could do for you? You look very captivated. And I said, Buddha, oh, this laddu is just spellbound me. This would be the best thing, better than nirvana, to have laddu at this moment, better than moksha, it is said that he said the word moksha, better than liberation itself. Oh, this laddu is here and now. So Buddha says, oh, I will give it to you, but you have to do something in return. And the Brahmin was puzzled. He says, okay, you ask me what? So Buddha says, okay, I will give you the laddu, hold it in your hand, and then you have to recite a prayer with me. So the Brahmin said, okay, I'll do whatever for this laddu, sure. So Buddha gave him the laddu in his hand, and this old man is holding this laddu. And Buddha says, recite with me that I don't need this laddu. Just say it. And the Brahmin, he thought, maybe, we don't know exactly what he thought, right? But the commenters say he did not want to say the word because he'd be lying. He needed the laddu, but he couldn't say, I don't want the laddu. And maybe he thought if he did say, I don't want the laddu, Buddha would take it away. That it was just a trick. So he didn't say a word. And Buddha, he says, Brahmin, say it with me. I don't need this laddu. I can give this away. I don't need it. I'm okay without this laddu. And the Brahmin couldn't say. So Buddha held his hand and he says, grandfather, it's okay, calm down. I will give you the laddu, but just say this with me and meditate on me with this. So finally, Brahmin was calm and he did say the word, I don't need this. I can give this away. And that's it. That's all Buddha needed to do. And then Buddha gave him the laddu and he left. And monks were very puzzled, like, what was Buddha doing? Right? So that evening in the Dhamma hall, when they all gathered, that was the talk of the evening. All the monks were chatting among themselves. So it was a custom that whenever Buddha came to the Dhamma hall, he would sometimes ask monks for topics, right? So his way of asking for topic was that he asked monks, what were you talking about? And of course, all they said, oh, we are puzzled by the laddu. What was that all about? So Buddha gave a beautiful talk, the Sutra of the Laddu. He says that this Brahmin, I know him, Buddha said. And he says for his past several life, all his life, he has never given things away. He just never had enough to give away. He was always accumulating, wanting this, wanting a yacht, a boat, a ski-doo, whatnot, right? We all do this. So Buddha says he was busy with just wanting. He never gave anything away. Even in this life, Buddha said very clearly, he had plans. He wanted to marry his daughter, son, grandson. When they're all done, the old days came. He never actually ever had enough. Buddha says that if he were to die with this constant greed of not having enough, he will keep circulating this. He will never know that there is a pause, there is joy. And he says, oh, this, it doesn't seem much like, but me sitting with him and asking him to say, I don't need this, this is going to be meditation for him. This is what he will keep thinking. This is the first time he consciously thinks in his mind. And he says, it has nothing to do with the laddu or this or that, but just the thought in his mind that I don't need this, I'm okay without it. But I said, this he needs to do. If he passed away without it, it'll be a long time before he finds the Dhamma. So Buddha said, this was his meditation. Right? So in a similar way, a practitioner of Dhamma, as much as we put effort and time in meditating, practicing mindfulness, and so forth, similarly, we should focus on putting effort. That means making conscious choices. Again, going back to the original sutta, as Buddha said, that our nature, the inner nature of our mind is joy, purity, luminosity, but it gets clouded by other things. Thus, to go back to that original state, one has to make conscious effort. we cannot let thoughts and ideas and desires and mundane things keep running unchecked. All they need, Buddha says, is this conscious recollection. So he categorizes these in 4 qualities. First one, he calls it savara. That means preventing unchecked, unwholesome, unskillful thoughts that constantly run as a background narrative in us. Always feeling, oh, I haven't, maybe sometimes feeling I haven't done the best I could in life. Just this commentary, right? Or that I need this, I need that, I need this. Being mindful of that. Secondly, watching our aversion, things that irritate us, that trigger us, just not letting them run unchecked, just watching them. They're also there, as important as meditating on the cushion. And then second one, Buddha says, abandoning unwholesome thoughts. If we find ourselves, pahana, destroying it bit by bit, right? Pahana is like chipping away on the mountain in a way. So Buddha says the second effort one should make, conscious effort, is to look at things that disturb our peace, that disturb our luminous state of mind. But it's very clear that we don't suppress them. When we see in ourselves that, oh, I have desire, I have greed, I have this, not suppressing them, not putting them under the carpet and putting a moral label on it, but working through it, trying to understand it, putting a little bit of beam of light to it, putting a conscious energy to it, to watch and see and say, well, I want to make a conscious effort to abandon them, to let them go. This is what I wish to. And the beauty is, this is the key on the spiritual path. Just recognizing, checking them, and even making a simple mental note. I want to abandon them. It'll be very weak in the beginning. You do it twice, thrice. It comes a time when it becomes so strong, like a wave of consciousness. Right? A few times later, any negativity arises in your mind and you tell them, oh, I want to abandon this. It will disappear. Mind is so prone to this conscious suggestion. It has to be so clear, it has to be so conscious, and it works. Sometimes it works negatively too, right? For example, in my case, a long time ago, I used to be so good at remembering phone numbers and dates, right? And then in grade 10, I started reading all the philosophy books, Schopenhauer and whatnot. And then there was this crazy period in my life. I thought, well, these are all crazy people in the world that remember history dates. So and so, World War, this, and these phone numbers and that phone number. Why to waste our bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, to remember this? And I thought for myself that I don't want to remember any of this. And I used to dedicate so much time in meditation, right? So that's just conscious thinking. A few times, again, 3-4 months. And then there came a time when I could not remember even a single phone number. And it should be hundreds. I could say, okay, the minister's number, the education department's number, the police station number, because I had to know all these numbers for all our children and volunteers and ambulances and whatnot. I couldn't remember. Somehow one number I still remember, it was Bodhima's phone number. That one never went, because that one I thought, okay, this one I better keep. And now it became a problem that I don't remember any date, none. But it surprises me that every sutta I remember, haven't forgotten. What sutta is where. So I knew that I did this to myself. So I'm not judging or anything, but saying that how, if we're very clear and we tell our mind again and again, and just conscious checking in and telling, sometimes it clicks and it's gone. So even things that become such a big obstacle, if our mind is clear, we work on it, watching, conscious, aware, and telling it, no, this is something I don't value too much. Eventually there will come a time and it will go away. So that is why whenever we see any unskillful thought in us, aversion, greed, anger, anything what we notice in ourselves, not to be judgmental, not to suppress them, not to put a moralistic line to it, but just watching, trying to let them go wisely, bringing a little bit of wisdom to them, a little bit of checking in and saying that these are things to be abandoned bit by bit, little bit by little bit. In a similar way, there are cultivated wholesome qualities, bhavana. So Buddha says that we should make conscious effort to grow wholesome qualities. This is beautiful one. Oh, this is the heart of the practice, what is needed. Here Buddha teaches that we should actually reflect and say, well, this life, the purpose of life here is to be joyful, to be at ananda, to be at ease, to be loving, kind, to be curious, caring for others, connected with everyone. This is the purpose. This is what the mind is. This is how we are born, right? And sadly, the tragedy of living this life, going through the phases and work and university and education, that things become conditioned. And our wholesome qualities, such as joy, kindness, sharing, this ability to just sit and watch a bird fly and be fascinated by it, these all diminish away. And ability to be happy becomes conditioned, that we'll be happy if this and this happens, right? If I have a good job, if I have good study home, if I have good relationship, if so and so do this, I will be happy. Meditation, in a way, Buddha's path is actually to cultivate joy actively. That's why we practice metta bhavana, for example, for no reason, just sitting in an empty room and just beaming love and light to everyone. It has nothing to do with what it does to them, but it's in a way to look at, say that I have to grow these qualities. The beauty is that these were unconditioned qualities, right? So going back again to the kids, when they are joyful, they don't have conditions that need to make them joyful, right? Even us, when we're little toddlers and we're chasing butterflies, looking at bugs, walking in the grass, just putting bare feet in the grass, and we're filled with joy. At that time also, joy was unconditioned, right? It wasn't as complex, it was simpler. So Buddha says that a spiritual person actually has to make conscious choice of cultivating joy, saying, is it possible that I have all the burden and responsibility I have on me? Children, family, jobs, work, world war happening everywhere, chaos happening. Am I capable of feeling joy? Or is my joy dependent on all this, right? So Buddha teaches the wholesome qualities. We should make a note in our diary. What are the wholesome qualities that we should bhavana? That means contemplate about it. Make a conscious recollection of this again and again. Qualities such as kindness, mindfulness, clarity. This is very, very helpful. So a practitioner of Dhamma should look into what are the qualities that make me happy. Some we like friendship. Someone, it could be creativity. When you're doing creative work, working with plants, gardens, or doing a drawing or singing or doing something, the Dhamma message is that those are very helpful. Pick them up. Take those skills. It could be going for exercise. Whatever changes you into a wholesome state, Buddha says, pursue it actively. And that is why the focus on Sangha. Make friends. Buddha had actually forbade especially nuns, that you cannot share, one person cannot have single room. They must learn to share. He was trying to create conditions when they would make friends, when they would work with each other. There's another sutta where Buddha has summarized, this is the whole of his spiritual life means friendship. This is what I'm trying to cultivate. So one should actually think about that. Well, being spiritual doesn't mean I move away from the world and I tuck myself in an empty room. No, no, no. We're actually embracing the whole world. We're making more friends. Totally making more friends without taking too much time. I did make a new friend, and I thought never in my life I would make a friend like this. So I was traveling home on my own from Costa Rica this time. And being a brave monk that I've become these days, I was coming through US and transitioning through there, and I had to go through immigration and leave US in Texas, of all places. And I was worried that I might have said some words here and there that may not be very appreciative of the current US policies. So going through there, while I'm waiting for my flight, I had about 4 hours. I met this, I could tell he's totally Albertan, somebody from here. I try not to talk to somebody, right? But we're not sure about the gate. They didn't have our number, and this was like 20 minutes left to boarding, and there was no name, nothing. So everybody was confused. So this person asked me, "Are you sure that this is, are you going to Edmonton?" And I said, okay. And he did ask me, "Oh, do you speak English?" And always like, I speak a little bit, hoping that they won't initiate more conversation. So we started talking. This is, "Where are you from?" And this is tall Albertan man, mustache, a little bit beard, the way he's dressed up. And I said, this is not my kind of person. He's a total truck driving Albertan. I'm not judging anything, right? But it's just thinking. And then when he hears I'm from Nepal, he says, "Oh, he has been in India. He was in India. He went to an Indian wedding." And he talks and talks. And I feel that there is something a little bit odd about him. And so I told him, he asked, "Where are you coming from?" I told him, "I'm coming from Costa Rica." He says, "Oh, he's coming from Costa Rica as well." So he had flown out of Costa Rica. And he and his wife, they had traveled to somewhere in the Patagonian mountains, Argentina or something. But he had to come back work. So he was flying home. And then he revealed what I was feeling the resistance to. His trip was about hunter. He was traveling there for hunting. And he pulled out his phone and showing me all the hunting photos. He hunts, he loves it. And I'm saying, "Do you recognize that I'm a Buddhist monk?" You're showing me all hunting photos of deers. And these are beautiful, beautiful, oh my goodness, beautiful elks. He's hunted in Banff area and whatnot, right? And so I was feeling like, okay, what do I do now? What's there common? So I thought, okay, I will try and have a conversation, especially because I shouldn't be an awkward Canadian, right? So I thought I would make at least a small talk. So and I told him, well, one hunter I knew of in my life was this Rudyard Kipling. Sorry, not Rudyard Kipling, this Jim Corbett. He was a man born in India, a tiger hunter, who had a change of heart later, and he became a wonderful conservationist, leading to founding a first national park in India, and a tiger conservation national park. And then his eyes beamed, and he goes into his bag and he pulled out his book. He says, this is his hero he has been reading, and he actually had the books and everything. And I thought, oh, there is no getting rid of this gentleman, is there? And he became best buddy. He even brought me up to the gate, and he wanted to drive me if I needed anywhere. And he apparently owns a big trucking company somewhere. And he's a wealthy person. He says he has like 200 trucks and 20, 50 employees, and if I'm in Edmonton, he'd love to meet. I wasn't so sure how much I want to go and hang out with hunters. But I noticed at that moment, right, that, well, there was this resistance in me, not making more people, not making more friends. And maybe I thought, well, him being a hunter wouldn't want to be friends with a Buddhist monk who teaches non-violence and non-killing. But it gave him so much joy. And talking a little bit, he did talk a little bit about his feeling uneasy. And he does ethical hunting and whatnot. I tried to explain, and I said, well, you should read some more books from Jim Corbett. So I even told him about his dog, and he's going to read. And I'm sure he's someday is going to go and visit Jim Corbett's place. Long story short, everywhere, in any situation, we have ability to make friends. And we have ways to enrich their life, our lives too. So what I mean is that the Dhamma life, the Dhamma practice is not just passive coasting through life, just watching, oh, whatever suffering comes, dukkha comes, that this is all impermanent, let it go. It's more than that. It's actually very active. It's active cultivation of joy, active seeking of creativity, connection, and so forth. And I see that this is not talked much about in the Dhamma. This is not encouraged. But I was delighted to see the Buddha thinks that these are very important, they're very essential to the practice of the Dhamma. That is why when I review the 37 factors, when I did a little bit of math to see what are these 37 points he deems very important, he repeats this active type of cultivation methods 9 times. So 9 out of 37 qualities, they are all on active effort. You have to put conscious effort. These are procreative practices. This is the highest, he thinks. This is the most needed for awakened life. And then secondly comes mindfulness. So energy, effort is mentioned 9 times. And when you look at the picture and diagram, you'll see mindfulness is only 8 times. Concentration 4 times. Faith 2 times, having faith in ourselves and qualities. Wisdom 2 times. So this is a whole different way to look at the Buddha, right? Now, the last one. Buddha calls it anurakha. That means maintaining our noble qualities. So that means looking at ourselves and seeing that, what are the good qualities do I have? Do I have ability to make friends? Do I have ability for joy? Do I have ability for creativity? Do I love travel? What is it that takes me to that primordial state of mind, that takes me before all the conditioning took over? What are my essential at base quality? And seeing if any of those, even in a glimmer of hope, even like a tiny, small little flame, if they're still burning, to guard them, to protect them. Say, well, I did love drawing. I did love doing this. Or could be singing, could be music. Growing them, guarding them. These are also good for growth of meditation. You might find, okay, this is strange. How would singing or music would help us in meditation? Later on, when you examine, for example, the 7 factors of awakening, you'll see number 1 is actually joy, piti. There has to be energy of joy in your body before deep samadhi can occur. And joy doesn't arise unless there are vibrations flowing through you, unless you can feel openness, you can feel fluidity in you. It doesn't happen. Could be meditating years in a cave and joy doesn't arise at all. So this is the beautiful matrix of how these are connected. And the more I examine it, it's amazing how Buddha had looked at these subtle connections and how they work. It's part and parcel of the whole thing. So the last among these 4 types of active cultivation of effort, Buddha says, is that we should put effort into cultivating, nourishing, stabilizing wholesome qualities in us. One way to look at all this would be to look at our mind and us as a garden, right? One analogy would be that a garden needs weeding sometimes. We can't just leave our mind and forget about it and let it go out. So removing the weeds, watering it, nurturing it, recognizing, oh, there are some wonderful plants growing in my mind. I should nurture this. These have deeper roots. They were there before all the worry and the world took over. I should nurture them. So this is a different way of meditating. And then watering ourselves regularly, watering those qualities, watering friendship, creativity, connection, singing, joy. It could be sutra singing. We monks also sing. We sing sutras so many times. But also knowing that we have to fine-tune this. Buddha has said, one very popular simile Buddha always uses is, in Pali, he says that it's like our body and mind are like musical instrument. We have in India, we have veena, this thread type of instrument, musical instrument. Not like guitar, they usually have only one thread, the veenas, or sitars, they have many. Lute, in a way, lute. And Buddha says that if they're tightened too tight, they will snap, right? If they're too loose, they won't produce any music. So we have to be gentle with them. We have to find a middle approach with ourselves, without judging, without forcing, just gently checking in, being persistent, being mindful and active about it. The bottom line is joy, peace, and perhaps if we look at a child, being without too many thoughts running in our mind. These are essential qualities. We're born with them. This is very fundamental function of consciousness, that these are available to all of us. But we need to make conscious effort now to rediscover them. There's more to share, definitely. Next week, I'll be discussing more onto how these lead to the cultivation of satipatthanas, or practicing a mindfulness of body, sensations, and so forth, how these are linked. So my request would be that if you have a little time, please review, look at the 37 Bodhipakkhiyas, note them down, and see what you think about them, so that we could discuss more next week. We should leave it to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bhante. All right, well, it's time. Thank you all for staying as long as we did.
Thank you. That was wonderful.
I wish you all a wonderful evening. For 3 of you out there on the East Coast. Good night.